as it says in Lamentations, even when I cry out and call for help, God shuts out my prayer. And even though the gates of prayers have been locked, the gates of tears have not been locked. As it has been said, hear my prayer, O God, and give ear unto my cry. Keep not silence at my tears. This excerpt is in fact not from the Zohar, it's from the Babylonian Talmud. Okay? Babylonian Talmud. If you study Kabbalah, it really helps to know your Bible and your Talmud and all your other Jewish books, because again, these people, their building blocks are all this Jewish culture. Okay, so what can we do if we want to eat the cherry without sipping the entire oatmeal cereal, right? We have to trace back, because when the Kabbalists are teaching their teachings about how the gates of tears are never locked, are never closed, and how that relates to Genesis, they know something that maybe we don't remember, that the Babylonian Talmud said that. Okay, you get it what the Babylonian Talmud said? The gates of tears are never closed, even though we don't have the temple to pray and all that, we can still pray and reach God. How? What's a secret ingredient? Tears. Okay, so bear that in mind as we progress. That the Zohar is not inventing that idea that the gates of tears are never locked, are never closed. They are quoting the Talmud. Okay? So far so good? So far so good. Now, which verse are we interpreting here? The first verse of Torah, right? By the way, out of those 70 interpretations, some of them were confined to Bereshit. Sometimes they couldn't help, and they went to like Bereshit bara Elohim or Et HaShamayim ve'etar. They couldn't contain themselves quite to the first word. It's like the first word and its surrounding. Okay? But you're right. This is the verse. Everyone maybe knows this verse. Bereshit bara Elohim Et HaShamayim ve'etar. Even if you don't, it's fine. Yeah, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. We know that verse, right? It's a famous verse. So, literally, what does that mean? We know what it means. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. It's a fairy tale that happened how many years ago? 5,780 something years ago. The world was created. That is the literal sense. What do the Kabbalists make of it? This first part that you're reading is the exposition. The exposition. They're basically saying, in the beginning, Bereshit, yeah? What are these? And they're looking at the word Bereshit, and they're dividing it into two words. Bara and sheet, which is, I have to think how to pronounce that in English, right? Created, bara is created, 6. Okay, they see that division. In other places, they will divide the word in 1,000 different ways. Okay, but right now they're looking at the word, and rather than seeing a word, they're seeing a sentence containing two words. Created, 6. What are these? These are the 6 vessels which are parallel to the 6 days of creation. Okay, so already we realize, we don't know what those vessels are yet, but we realize that they don't take it literally, right? Because the days have become vessels, containers. Yeah, so they're basically messing with time and space. Okay? This is, and then they say, this is the supernal mother who is above them, for she is the 7th vessel. So, what are they showing us?
I need to hold my pants up.
Don't worry about it now.
Okay.
See, when you try to teach Kabbalah, it's never easy. The gates of the Zoom are never locked. Everyone on Zoom, if you can hear us, please mute yourself. All right? I'll read to the end, and then maybe we'll be able to
that?
some sense of it. I'm going to try to mute people.
You can do it on the side, and then white.
Okay? So, which then created from the supernal mother above, so do six emanate from the mother below. And what is that? That is the heaven and the earth. These are the six vessels, okay, about which it's been said, Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. The lower earthly vessels contain the supernal vessels. This is the exposition. Let's try to make sense of it. I know it's can be confusing, right? So basically what they're doing is that they're completely changing the grammar of the sentence, right? Because the subject of the literal sense is Elohim, God created. And we all know that God, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. However, for them, what is the subject of the sentence? Who is the creator and who is the created? Where is mother in that sentence? So here's where you have to follow the flexibility of the Hebrew grammar, because in Hebrew, Bereshit bara Elohim can also mean with Reshit, Elohim was created. In other words, Reshit is the one who created God. What is Reshit? Reshit is an origin point. It's an origin, it's a beginning, it's something. Reshit can be a beginning of time, but it can also mean for them not just a temporal thing, okay? It can mean something primordial, something that was there even before God, okay? So they're messing with us on purpose, okay? Because if we were to start a symposium of saying what is God, who created, we're like 30 people here, including the ones on Zoom. Everyone will have a different explanation of what that is, right? So for them, just a moment. Reshit created God, Elohim, and there are kind of like two levels of creation going on. You see, there's bara shit, bara Elohim. See that? There's the word bara basically appears twice. Where does it appear for the first time? In the word Bereshit. Something created sheet, created six, and that when that thing formed, it created Elohim. And thus, the heaven and the earth were created as two parallel realms that are, one is contained inside the other. Okay? You want to have a question?
Well, I mean, it's confusing, so I wanted you to repeat from the beginning, but
right? So again, what Kabbalah tries to do is not for us not to take anything for granted. Okay, the point of the Kabbalists is to kind of like shake reality, and shake our understanding and our theological understanding and our conceptions, so that by deconstruction we can then also reconstruct. Okay, so their interpretations of Scripture will be very far removed from the literal meaning, which we think we all know and agree upon, which is, by the way, not sure that we do, right? Because what is beginning and what is God and how is it created? And for them, the story of creation already tells us a story in which there are two realms, which they call the supernal or the celestial or the heavenly mother, and the earthly mother. Notice, speaking of Reform Judaism, notice the feminine description of the divine. We used to all the time have our Father in heaven. All of a sudden there's a mother. It's like, oh, what's a yeah, just like you can call God Father, you can call God Mother, and they did that 700 years ago. I had no problem with doing so. Okay, and there's two realms. Now, what does it mean, in your opinion, that one of them it contains the other? Does that make sense? Which one is?
Who contains, is it there first, it's first created and then what was created becomes a part of one?
Possibly.
Is that what?
Right? So which one is there's a heaven under the earth. There's a spiritual realm and a material realm. Which one is containing the other?
It says the earthly vessels contain the supernal vessels.
Right? Does that ring a bell? Like in our daily existence, does that ring a bell to something familiar?
Is it the earthly one?
Did anyone feel ever in your life that you're a material thing that contains a spiritual
The body contains.
a spiritual realm? Happens to me every day. I wake up surprisingly like, oh, exactly. I woke up, I have a body, and I go here, I go there, I brush my teeth, I get dressed. Inside there's thoughts, there's emotions, there's desires, there's wishes.
Duality of people.
What's that?
Duality of people.
Right, so basically what they're describing here in their own Kabbalistic way, which I could elaborate more about, and about the other times maybe we will, but I want to keep going in the text. And if you feel like you only 75% understand it, that's fine, right? Because that's good actually. That's good, right? Just a second, David. Okay, the idea of this first exposition is to make us understand that creation is multifaceted, and there's more than one world and more than one realm, and we kind of coexist. We're material, we're spiritual, and creation and Bereshit, the story, is not something that once happened. It's something that's in the present progressive. It's happening, right? We're creating it all the time. Short comments, and then I want to go on to the next. Yeah.
So are they trying to solve a problem with how they perceive the text? Why are they doing this?
Well,
I mean,
imagine you in the late 13th century in Spain. No TV, no iPhone, no Netflix, no New York Times. You don't have cars to drive far. You have time to play with words of Torah. Okay. Another thing. So it's a kind of creative interpretation. Another thing, other than just enjoying it, and just like there's this one, imagine that there's 70. This is just a part of one of 70, which is part of a wider literature that has thousands of those. Okay, for every verse of the Torah.
yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you've ever seen an Oriental carpet. Or if you've ever heard Indian music, right? It's a kind of culture, right? That kind of goes in to create.
It's intricate.
Yes. So there is also the aesthetic element and the cultural element, but also they're in fact trying to teach us something. Okay, they are mystics. Don't forget, they are people who are devoted to having a very deep relationship with God. They believe that Torah, our scripture, is the key to teaching that, which is why they refuse to take it literally. Okay, they see the literal meaning of the text as the outer garment of Torah. Nachmanides, a Kabbalist who lived maybe 100 years before them, said that in Mount Sinai, when the Ten Commandments when the Torah was given, not just Ten Commandments, everybody heard it was given on 7 different levels, like the colors of the rainbow, and everybody and the literal meaning is only the lowest one. So Torah is revelation, and therefore, if you kind of look at its letters and it starts flying, and Bereshit becomes Barashit, and then Bara, oh my, right? And it speaks to them. Maybe more like poetry or art, right? If you try to understand, abstract art in rational terms, you will not get very far. So literally, they're doing the same processes to scripture, and there's a point. And by creating this, and the idea is that by creating these texts, and then by reading and deciphering these Jewish Zen riddles, we can also get a glimpse at that more sublime, divine place from which they were writing those, that inspired them to write them. Okay? So, just a moment. So that's the point of the text. Okay, that's the point of it. So basically, and Zen is good because you know Zen riddles, like very short, to the point Buddhist riddles. They're usually like the kwans. They're like five. What is the sound of one hand clapping? You know, like very short things that the answer to supposed to kind of like blow out your mind, and so the Jewish Zen riddles are just very, very long because we're Jews. So it's like rather than just be like a short sentence that goes on and on and on, but it's the same idea. Can we move forward? I know that this may be a lot of questions, but let's go. Oh, before we turn the page, they're alluding to another verse which we sometimes sing. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Cantor and I were singing this verse over and over, right? We sing it every Shabbat. Now we sing it twice because there's Shacharit as well, right? Do you understand what is their play with yamim? What is yamim? Sheshet yamim, literally. 6 days. Sheshet yamim, but what is they saying? Yamim happens to be the plural form of both yom, which is day, and yam, which is sea or vessel. So once again, they're trying to tell you, think that the 6 days of creation are days. They're not days. They're 6 qualities. There are 6 vessels, and we know already. We don't know much about those 6 vessels, but if we'll ever get to the continue, we'll get to it later on. They say what they are, but we already know that those vessels have a quality that they're double-fold. Right? There's a material vessel that contains a spiritual one. Okay? And when the world is created, Shamayim ve'eretz, there's the twofold of creation. Okay? If you look at this arc that I'm looking at, right? You can see that there's 2. It just happens to be, right? Form of art. Like they're integrated, a bit like yin and yang, right? All right, let's turn the page. So we have that in mind, and think about their teachings like a PowerPoint slideshow. That was slide 1. Keep it in the back of your mind as we go to number 2, and then when we go to try to hold all of them together, so all the ducks are sitting together to kind of get to their profound teaching. When Israel would pray, when the temple was intact, all these vessels would be open for them. Okay, there's a situation where all the vessels are open and the channels are flowing. But now in the galut, the diaspora, it has been said about those vessels, all gates have been locked. And now they come to this very tragic description. The Shekhinah, which is the let's say the female aspect of God, removed from her place. The Kadosh Baruch Hu, which was the masculine aspect of God, is removed from his place. The angels, you know that they're angels. Apparently they're angels, right? Here they are. In the text there are angels. For the Kabbalists, for sure there are angels. The angels who are in charge of the prayers are also removed from their places. As has been written in Isaiah, behold, their valiant ones shall cry from the outside. Okay, so the literal sense of Isaiah is that they cry out. But for the Kabbalists, they say the word hachutza, so basically outside. So there, the angels are removed from the, okay? And prayers do not have a place above. And that is, all gates have been locked. Okay? Not okay. Confusing to you, Shelley? Okay, let's try to simplify it. Let's remember slide number 1. There are two realms, right, that they're talking about: the material, the physical, the tangible, and the spiritual. Did it ever happen to you in your life that you felt that those were not together? That something in the outer way of how one leads our life, and in this kind of like here and now, doesn't exactly concur with our deepest spiritual inner world. Ever happened to you? How many times, to me it happened today a couple of times, like when the Zoom wasn't working. Like I come here all rabbinic, trying to like teach profound wisdoms from a book from 700 years ago, and the Zoom isn't working, and the bagel isn't there, and the right. So that, so in other words, let's try to see what is diaspora. Therefore, what is that? Just what? Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I was just thinking there's Israel and there's the diaspora.
Mhm.
We're always talking about connection.
So there's Israel and diaspora, true. However, listen to this. Just like creation is not creation, then Israel and diaspora is not literally Israel and diaspora. See what I mean? For the Kabbalists, nothing is to be taken literally. Everything is a symbol for consciousness and awareness and in the here and now. So just like we already figure out, and if I see some heads going like this and like this, that's very natural when you're studying Kabbalah. So don't worry about it. That's part of the process. Okay? We already established in slide number 1, okay, that the creation of the world, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, is not to them speaking about a history or a science as once happened. In other words, if they came to all those areas in America where they don't want to teach evolution because it contradicts the Bible, they say, what are you talking about? The Torah is not, it's not, you don't understand. The Torah is metaphorical. You're not supposed to compare it with science. And you see what I mean? Because they're talking about a creation that is happening all the time, of the physical and the spiritual. And similarly, just like Bereshit is not a historical or scientific truth of the past, but something that they try to teach us about now, so is Israel and diaspora. It's two states of consciousness. Okay? It's not, and that can be really helpful to us because we're all struggling. And you hear it from someone who came from Israel and moved to America. But for them, it's not about that. There was no state of Israel. They never thought that they'd ever go back. Like, who would have thought? They're like in Spain, those guys. They really are, before the expulsion. They're like, well, it's not Israel, the temple, Jerusalem. It is, they know it's there, but that's not their main point. Okay, their main point is that the time when the temple is intact and we're all praying and there's no galut and all the angels are happy and Shekhinah is happy and Kudsha Baruch Hu is happy and all the prayers are flowing, that is a state of mind where the heaven and the earth are, in other words, where the inner and outer realms of existence are kind of flowing. Right? We have our mojo, we have the yin and the yang are happy, all that. And galut, diaspora, is therefore not a temporal place, that's the wrong thing. It's not a place in time and space. It is a mental state of being. So in other words, we can be in the galut or in the land of Israel. The temple can be built and destroyed 1,000 times a day. Okay, that's important because right now, for example, when we're struggling with all this thing that is happening politically, there's a war in Israel. Actually, in my hometown, not hometown, but in our regional council where I was a rabbi, a missile fell and blew up a home last night. Okay, so we're all struggling with that, right? And we should be struggling with that, and it's real and it's happening, and as Jews we have to deal with that, right? Here and there. Yet these texts help us remember that there's levels to Judaism that are also not that. There's spiritual levels and there's spiritual interpretations, right? That take our holy texts and make meaning out of them. That it doesn't matter where you are. You can be like in the Kotel in Jerusalem, under the Wailing Wall and feel galut. And you can be in a God-forsaken corner of the earth like Rochester, New York. But if you did your yoga this morning, then you're not in Galut. You're in Eretz Yisrael. You see, according to them, nothing to do with where you physically are. It's a totally different ball game of interpretation of Scripture. It doesn't cancel the other ones. It doesn't say that the politics and the war and the peace and our connection to physical Israel and all and AIPAC and J Street, it's not important. It's important, but that's not for this class today. See what I mean? It's a whole other. So whenever we study Kabbalistic texts, we always have to ask ourselves to be cautious not to be caught in the metaphor. See, in a way, David, why are they doing it? Because it's also liberating. They were living in a much less happier in Galut than we do. Okay, under Christian like dominance that 7 years later like kicks them out of Spain and they're all what I mean, and they have to create spiritual realms that are kind of detached from the physical reality. All right?
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
Yes?
So whenever I think of diaspora, and I don't want to think of the politics, but it to me still implies a separation from something.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I think about it in a metaphorical sense, in the way that you are speaking, what is that separation? What is the separation from? Is it origin point, the same origin point that is here?
Well, that's stuff you're trying to figure out, right? Because this is a teaching about creation and about tears and about prayer. We teach it before the high holidays when we're going to gather at the JCC together, right? And we're going to hope that something magical and great is going to happen, and that our cantor is going to sing and the flute is going to then everybody's going to pray, and we are hoping that it'll not just be a big show, but and that it'll be real, and that our tears will reach the heavens and transform us, right? And we know that sometimes it works, right? And sometimes you go like, oh well, yeah, you see what I mean? Especially, right? You don't. Yeah, exactly. You can always change the rabbi, right? But don't change your cantor, because she's the one who sings who brings the flutist. So you see what I mean? So in other words, this is again. So that's kind of the thing, right? This is what we're trying to figure out together with our aid. Okay, so see, look where they're going now. Speaking of jazz avant-garde, because no one can open those gates, right? We know it's not always like now I'm going to have a deep spiritual experience in prayer, right? Cantor and I, we bring this musician, and somebody says no, it was too loud. They bring that musician, she wasn't playing loud enough. Right? We sing that song. Oh, that one is not like in my grandfather's synagogue. It's not good. Oh, but my grandfather's synagogue was not your grandfather's synagogue. So what are we going to do? Right? So in other words, we're trying, right? We're trying to meditate, but then we think about whatever the phone call we got from our bank or whatever. You know what I mean? We're trying, but it's not always easy, right? So because no one can open those gates, no one, but who? The master of tears. If you want to be able to know how to pray, you got to be the master of tears. On which it has been said, now look at that, speaking of creative interpretation. She opened it, and she saw him, the child, and behold, he was weeping. He was a weeping lad, and she had compassion on him. In Exodus chapter 2, verse 6, and no one and no palace can be opened except for with the master of tears. This is the meaning of she opened it. Surely she opened the vessel. Now, what are they talking about? What is that story of Moses when he was a baby? Do you know this story? See how they're playing with us? You see, they have like Play-Doh. Their Play-Doh is like Jewish texts. This story, Genesis, Exodus, the Talmud. They know that. They went to yeshiva. They went to Hebrew school. Okay, they know. They didn't stop after their bar mitzvah. They know all those texts, right? And again, they don't have Seinfeld. They don't have Friends. What they have, this is their culture. Okay, what is their interpretation of Moses? Do you get the picture? We know that it's a baby. That Miriam is there. Yocheved, Pharaoh, Exodus. What is their interpretation of Moses? Who opened the casket? It's a casket. How do you call this thing?
Basket.
The basket. The teva in Hebrew.
The princess.
The princess. Her name was Batya. By the way, does it say in the Bible that her name is Batya? It does not. Batya means daughter of God. Daughter of God. The sages mysteriously called the daughter of Pharaoh the daughter of God. Okay?
Well,
Who?
Moses, right, drawn from the water, wasn't it?
What's that?
Wasn't Moses drawn from the water, the name? It's not as literal.
Right? He's the one who was drawn from the community. That's how he got his name. He's the master of tears. See, do you ever think about Moses who's the master of tears? I think it's genius. You know, we think of Moses the leader, Moses the miracle maker, Moses the warrior. For them, Moses, for the Kabbalists, Moses is the master of tears. And here's a baby. And no one can open the vessel, but the master of tears, he cried, she heard him, and she opened the basket. Now bring it to the here and now. Bring it to the here again. It's not Moses, just like it's not diaspora, and it's not Genesis. Who is Moses? Theoretically. It's a clue. Where is the Nile, the river Nile?
He's the prince of Egypt.
Yeah, but you're like locked in time and space. Forget about the Disney movie. Forget what's that? He's a prophet. But again, it's not the diaspora. When we talk about diaspora, I'll give you a hint. When you talk about creation, where and when does their paradigm of creation happen? With these two realms of existence, physical and spiritual, one containing something the other. Where and when does it happen? All the time. To whom? To everybody. To everybody. Where? Here and now. Right now. Right now. Just say, beware. You're a physical thing that has an inner spiritual world. Now, then they went on and said to us, diaspora and galut is not Israel and this and America and Russia and Morocco. It's two states of consciousness. Either the two are connected, or they're disconnected. Happens to us to me it happens like 1,500 times a day. I connect, I disconnect, connect, disconnect. Okay? I don't know about you guys. Maybe you do more Tai Chi than me, so you're more. I don't know. Okay, but okay. Okay. Therefore, who's this picture of Moses floating in the Nile, crying, like feeling locked, can't break through.
Jewish people.
The Jewish people, just Jews, by the way. Probably. By the one very interesting thing about the Zohar and why I like to read it, because 95% of the time they say people, not Jews. Their teachings are universal. That's why Madonna likes it and many other people. Seriously, because these teachings are spiritual teachings. They have nothing to do with. You don't have to be Jewish necessarily to have to understand what we're talking about. It helps if you're Jewish and you know all the stories and you know all the it helps you to understand. But you can see what I mean. There you go. Everybody wants to study Kabbalah. Wait until you're 40 years old. You're not allowed to. Right? So, all right. So, okay. See. All right. So there you go. So we are. So you see. So what is the River Nile? What is the River Nile there for? What is Egypt? It's our existence. It's human existence. And imagine we're all in these baskets, alone, and we're being. Think it's very like think about Freud. Our mother kicked us out, right? We're like it's very Freud. Like we're all like in this little basket, drifting through life, and we feel alone. We're not connected because we're in the galut, which is again it's a metaphor. See what I mean? And then there was this miracle that happened. Batya, which is Shekhinah. You see, they take the princess of Egypt and make her God in their metaphor. She is the Shekhinah. She is the mother. How did she know that there was this? How did she, in this story, in this metaphor, what is the thing that made the basket open?
Tears.
Tears, say the people on Zoom. Thank you, people on Zoom. Right? The tears, the weeping of a baby, of the child, See, it's amazing. They get Moses when not when he's like standing there with they get him as a baby. They call him the master of tears. It's a tip for how to pray, guys. This is practical text. It's not just okay. Like if you want, like one of the biggest teachers of Kabbalah of our time, Professor Moshe Idel, wrote hundreds of books on Kabbalah. He said people read Kabbalah and they get confused because they think it's a theology. It doesn't make sense. Huh? It's not a theology. It's a practical instruction book. Okay, you wanna know how to pray. Like if you're stuck in your life, imagine that basket, and the only thing that's going to get the miracle, then you open and you see that great mother, right? Is the tear, the crying of the baby opens up the basket. All right, ready to go on? Do we have some more time? We have some more time, a little bit. Can we take a little, until 1:45? 1:45? Upon that it's been written. Here we get to some of the practical aspects. Adonai sefatai tiftach. Anyone ever heard this one before? We say, Adonai sefatai tiftach. So they're connecting. They know that this is how we begin our prayer. These guys prayed 3 times a day. Okay? At least. On Shabbatot, they pray 4 times a day. On Yom Kippur, 5 times a day. Right? They'll be praying all the time. Again, no Netflix, no, right? So, upon that it's been written, Adonai sfatai tiftach. God, open up my lips. What has it been opened with? With a tear. As it has been written, and she saw him, the child, and behold, he was a weeping lad. And immediately thereafter it is written, and she had compassion for him. More about vatiftach, and she opened. When the people of Israel opened, that is, begin with teshuvah, in crying, then immediately, and she had compassion to him. You see, they're kind of re-explaining their creative interpretation of Bat Paro, the daughter of Pharaoh, as a metaphor for prayer, right? Immediately when the tears appear, she opened and she had compassion for him and she saved him. Okay? And that is, with weeping they will come, Jeremiah 31:8. For it is thanks to their tears that they be gathered from the galut, the diaspora. Again, not as a historical thing, as a metaphorical one for each and every day. Okay, a little more. Now we get to this. It's a lot, you see. So.
Well, I was thinking about services, like especially Yom Kippur, like they're sort of, it's so solemn and so heavy, and we are like, our emotions are stirred. Is that sort of?
Well, I think we're trying to do it. By the way, in Ashkenazi Judaism, which we're basically followers of, the feeling of the tefillah is very like very solemn, and Sephardi prayers have a bit of that. They have awe, but they're also have very ecstatic and very some even joyous melodies, because it's not just about it's also about the ecstasy of actually succeeding in prayer. All right, so there's and by the way, also in Ashkenazi prayer, like there's melodies that are, it's not all about the oi oi, it's about somewhere between that and the more optimistic and kind of like we've made it, we're right. So there's and by the way, the music is intertwined. We're trying to create that experience for everyone. Okay, sometimes we're more successful than others, but that's basically the point. Let's try to get through 4, because I think it's worthwhile. It actually talks about those 6 vessels. Okay, let's see if we can read a little bit through that. For there is a vessel of tears which only has permission to be opened with tears. And there is a vessel. Now start counting vessels. See how many vessels they are, and see what they mean. But this is exactly what we're talking about. There is a vessel of nigun, melody. That's what cantor. You're in charge of the vessel of nigun, right? You're the cantor. That's right. And there is a vessel of nigun, melody, that can only be opened with a melody. This is why King David would get close to this vessel through his melodies. As has been written, and now fetch me a musician. And it was that when the musician played, the hand of the Lord came upon him. This is about King David, that he would play music. Okay, and so there is a spiritual practice. There is a way to get closer to God through, in the physical world, creating music. See, now we're starting to understand what are those different vessels. Those different vessels are not just theological ideas, they're actually spiritual practices. Ways to do things in the world that they're a container. If we're able to do them, okay, in a successful way, they can help us reach the inner spiritual one. Okay? So there's the music that we create, that's a physical thing in the world, right? And that's one of them. There's an inner one that then, okay, the spiritual one that the music connects to. And there is a vessel of illumination, which only opens for a person who deals with the light of Torah. Dioraita, the Torah literally means that which illuminates. See, that's, you see what I mean? So, for example, what we're trying to do now is study Torah. And just like there's a spiritual practice that gets us to the inner spiritual celestial realms through music, there's another path which can help us get through to the inner celestial realm by the study of Torah, which illuminates. Okay, that's kind of like we're trying to do at this very moment. We're studying Torah, right? And there is a vessel of prophecy, which only opens for a person who is clever. Listen for the qualifications. A hero, and is also wealthy. Can you imagine why prophecy is related to those things?
Got people's attention.
Well, that you can buy a lot of influence, like China is doing on Facebook, right? So something to that. So prophecy is having foresight, right? Is having vision. If you're someone who's not a hero, wealthy and healthy and beautiful, right? You are all the time you're thinking about your next paycheck and how to survive through the day. Let's say you're a fisherman who every night goes, you will not have the time to have the vision. If you are a clever hero and wealthy, if you're like, you have this big scope, you're free to envision and see the future. See what I mean? It doesn't mean that people who are not all of the above can't, practice that. But you see, so prophecy is the ability to rise above everyday reality and kind of like have a vision, not just of the that's another channel by which it's another vessel.
But haven't we seen that the people who are wealthy are not prophets? And I think you're telling me Elon Musk is a prophet.
Yeah, but again, yes, and I've also seen lousy musicians who weren't spiritual, and I've also seen people who try to, who studied. But what they're talking about here is the best. In other words, you can be a poor wealthy person, as according to them. The point is the spiritual practice of rising above the here and now. Okay, you can be a student that doesn't have $1 in their pocket, but you're going to be the next Bill Gates because you are able to somehow be nurture that quality. I'm not saying that Bill Gates is great. I have no idea actually, but okay. See, but
Wealthy is a metaphor.
yes. So again, we're talking about different paths, and we're already understanding that the vessels are paths towards God. Okay, and you can do it through nigun. You can do it through study of Torah, using your brain. You can do it through actions in the world that are not focused on the here and now, but on expansion of the conscious. You'll see that there's the opposite one too. Okay? There is also a vessel of God's fearfulness, which only opens for a person who has obtained God's fearfulness from within. Something that maybe, I don't know in Reformed Judaism how good we are at that exactly. That's a really interesting question. God's yirah, the ability to kind of have, kind of like, I don't know how to say it exactly.
Is that like when your mom says, I'm going to put the fear of God in you?
Yeah, kind of like I think what they're talking about, you see, but the fear of God from within, not that, a big monster is gonna, hit you by lightning from the sky. Having internalized it. People who have kind of like a embedded morality in them, right? That they're not gonna not steal, because they're afraid of getting caught. They're not gonna steal because they're God-fearing people. It's another channel of internalizing morality, right? What's the next one? There is a vessel of poverty. There you go.
Okay, I like that one.
Yeah? There's a vessel of poverty which is not open but for the poor, who would wrap themselves prior to prayer in the wrapping of the mitzvot of talit and tefillin, on which it has been said, a prayer of the lowly man when he is faint and pours forth his plea before the Lord. That's in Psalm. You see, so that's an opposite one. One way to reach it is by being like soaring so high like an eagle, like having, all those, I don't know, estates everywhere, and being free from, having to pay the next bill or whatever, because there's an opposite way also, which is basically like, like monks, or you withdraw from the world, you kind of give away physical attachments, and you kind of like, all you have is your talit. The poor person only has their talit, only their cloak and that's also a way to God. Similarly, see, different things, work for different people. Some people, some people are more intellectually drawn. Some people are more artistically, musically drawn. Some people, their way, is to see but that's kind of the beauty of this. There's more than one way. There's different kinds of people and different kind of vessels, different kind of paths. So people say, how do you practically apply Kabbalah? In more than one way. In more than one way. See what works for you. Okay? And there is a gate for the tzaddikim, the righteous ones, which can only be opened for them, as it is written, this is God's gate, the righteous will enter therein. And I would dare to say that this one kind of like, this gate, you can be at tzaddik that does nigun, you can be at tzaddik that, see that it's like a general term. This is the gate of the tzaddik chayol amin, the tzaddik through whom the world is sustained, on which it has been said, I was young and also aged, have not seen a righteous person forsaken and his seed seeking bread. But, so how many gates are there? Did you count?
6.
What? 6 or 7?
6 vessels in one gate.
You're right. So you see, so there are 6 vessels. What makes the difference between a lousy nigun and a spiritual nigun? A good teaching and a spiritual teaching. Being rich and a maniac and a psychopath, and being rich and wealthy and actually using your wealth to improve, the other humanity. Being someone who's very poor, but actually is a complete like non-function. Like just the fact that you don't have anything and you live under a bridge doesn't make you a saint. It could make you a saint, but it could also make you someone who's in need of a lot of help, or a bit of both. But you see what I mean? Just because you are tzaddik, a righteous person, doesn't mean that your prayer is answered. What is the secret ingredient, the secret component?
Tears.
There you go. See, that's kind of like where they're taking this. That's kind of like where they're taking. I don't know if we should stop or continue. So let's just continue a little bit. See what I mean? They're kind of trying to teach us something. Counter, as we were thinking about how to develop our bima, and which liturgy to bring, and which musician, and what song. That's all well, but in some ways it also doesn't matter. We have to find a way to, together with our congregation, to make the prayer have the tears every once in a while. If we're trying to develop our adult ed and bring speakers who will speak about this and that and this, and have this class and that class and hold of the bagel and the this and that, is our Torah that we teach you at Temple Sinai, is it, that leading to, what is the secret ingredient? The tears. As we try to, where's our treasurer, Jared? As we try to, I don't know, see how many millions we have or don't have in the bank, and build a budget and think ahead for the next 17 years of Temple Sinai and, our branch on the moon that we want to build in Mars, and, like, And all that, like when we plan those plans, when we do a capital campaign or don't do a capital campaign, secret ingredient, etc. You see what I mean? There's, yeah.
Well, so when we were first going through this, you said tears, red tears, I thought, man, it's sadness. But we also have tears when we laugh, when we're moved by things, not necessarily being sad. Do you think that's the sense?
Right, so that's a really good conversation of what when they say tears or the gates of tears,
It's a metaphor.
what do they mean by that? Well, metaphor, not a metaphor, because I think I would they're actually talking about tears,
There's multiple literal meanings of tears.
Sincerity?
right? I would tend to think that they mean tears in the whole spectrum of emotions, because there are tears of happiness and there's tears of joy and there's tears of excitement and tears of nostalgia and tears of pain and tears of there's just like when I officiate weddings, I explain to couples that the last blessing in the chuppah that has all those gila, rina, it's like 50 different words for happiness, and we say we bless you that 50 shades of happiness you'll know through your married life. So similarly, there's 50 shades of tears, right?
In Hebrew as well?
Yeah, dim'ah, tear is just a physical. So basically, what is tear? Tear is like, if you'll see in number 5, they bring a metaphor of a river, a place that's been arid and dry, and all of a sudden is washed by a river, right? Tear is like an emotional
I think of it as sincerity.
sincerity.
Kavanah.
So we can collect the wisdom from the room here. What are tears? Kavanah, sincerity, different kinds of tears. What else? What else do we know about this moment of tear?
When you're crying, you're not thinking about anything else but what it is that causes you. So it's a certain focus.
Mm-hmm. Like a baby, right? Who only wants mama, right?
But it's also ends.
So
you don't cry continuously.
Mm.
It stops, right?
Beautiful. We can't, that when I studied Buddhism for my bachelor's, I did that once. There was actually an ancient Buddhist text about longer than the Zohar, about the Buddhist monk who was always crying. The Bodhisattva was infinitely crying because it was always right. But we know that we're not infinitely crying. Although maybe in some way we are, right? So in other words, if there is think about the evolved Moses. And what they choose to bring Moses in this text is the baby that's, the baby that's inside Moses, the leader, right? So on some level, there's always a baby calling for mama, right? My daughter and I yesterday we watched there's like a Morgan Freeman narrated series of Our World, and you see the penguin baby, and it's not even just for humans, right? On some level, we are all creatures who are crying for mama. Give me fish, feed me, right? But then, as David is saying, if we were always just connected to our tears, we'd be probably, you can't stay in that place of tears, of just being there in this simple kind of like, right, all the time. We have so, but being able to connecting to that.
It's authenticity. It's a place of true authenticity.
Authenticity, yeah. All those answers that you're giving are wonderful answers, and they're not mutually exclusive, right? We're investigating that place together.
It's what connects us all beyond religion and anything that's physical, as we all,
I agree with you, and connecting again to the point that the wisdom that these texts teach, which is why I like reading them, are universal, right? Anyone can connect to the metaphor to the creative metaphor of Pharaoh's daughter as being the divine mother that takes us out of our existential loneliness, right? By inner process of tears, right? It's connects. I would dare to say all human beings, and not even just human beings. Again, it's all creatures of this earth have that. Yeah.
I think you can be crying on the outside for a long time, but you can also just be crying on the inside, and it's not necessarily shown to people.
Right. So what you're telling us is just like there's inner and outer realms.
Yeah.
Someone who's very expressive outwards maybe they're not really crying authentically on the inside, and maybe on the other hand, like as parents, that there's whining and there's whining, right? There's tears and there's tears. There's crocodile tears. There's also fake tears, maybe, right? We have to be not the one who goes, right? It's like, okay, dude. But what you're telling us is also on the opposite. Sometimes someone can be seeming wonderful on the outside. I'm okay. Are you okay? No, actually, I'm not okay. But I'm not going to tell you because I'm not your friend. You don't know me. I don't trust you. You're not going to know my inner world, right? And sometimes the tears can be very subtle, and it's not necessarily real tears that come out of our. It doesn't have to be the physical expression of tear. We have to be mindful to that as well. Thank you. That's a beautiful observation. Any more pearls of wisdom? Yeah.
I think tears could also be if you have a drought, right? I was looking a little bit ahead to five, but if you have a drought, then you have the tears or the rain, so you can't really grow or bloom without the tears. And I think we can also have a spiritual drought, so that would be countered by tears.
Yeah, and by the way, that I think, seriously speaking, I think when we're speaking about having a house of worship and a spiritual community here, that yes, Temple Sinai is a lot of things. It's a social club. It's a economic institution. It's a building. It's a lot of it's a lot of things. But essentially, we have to make sure together that there's an answer to spiritual droughts. That we have a place that to fill spiritually. Yeah. So yeah.
It's like when you cry, what does it do to our body? It's like sometimes we feel better.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like a catharsis, right? So fortunately and unfortunately, we didn't read 5 and 6. But the beauty of it is you can take it home, and you can read it. See if you can on your own. See if you can figure out on 6, which is where you get real avant-garde, how they connect Moses' incident at the burning bush, and how they wrap it up with Bereshit and with the apple of the eye. Try to see if you can figure that out. If you don't, you can call me and we'll okay. It's actually quite beautiful. It gets even more elaborate. So to sum it up, and I know people have to go, which is okay. No offense, we went over time. A little glimpse into what Jewish mystical texts are about. Okay, they're kind of like help us to, I feel, create a different conversation between us. Give us a spiritual language that relates both to our tradition and to our human daily experience. Okay? Closing remarks, David?
Why do you think they're considered to be mystical?
That's a really good question. I'm not even sure what that word mysticism means.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily, and some people say that it's actually inappropriate to call Kabbalists mystics, because what's right? So we can have a whole discussion about that some other time, but it's a good point. Okay, so thank you everyone for agreeing to participate in this experiment. Next Saturday there'll be a slichot program where I'll be teaching a little bit more from Tikkunei Zohar, and starting October 30th, there's going to be a Wednesday evening class called Rosh Esther, where I'll be studying more of that on a weekly basis. Okay, so study more of those kind of teachings. Of those kind of teachings.